All right, today we're going to dive into some incredible technology that works like an intelligent eye for our food supply, letting us see what plants are secretly telling us. Let's get into it.
I know, it sounds a little out there, right? But this question is actually at the heart of a massive challenge in agriculture. How do we really know what a plant needs, right when it needs it?
Because, by the time we actually see a plant looking yellow or wilted, a lot of the damage is already done. The real trick is to catch these problems way earlier, at the invisible biochemical level. But how in the world do you see something that's invisible?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. There's a technology that literally lets us see beyond the limits of our own eyes, and it's getting ready to completely change the world of farming.
So why is this kind of technology so important, especially right now? Well, it all comes down to a major bottleneck and how we've been trying to grow better, stronger crops. The key idea here is that for the longest time, we've been way better at reading a plant's genetic code, its DNA, than we have been at measuring how that plant is actually performing out in the field. Think of it like this. We had the architect's blueprint, but we had a really slow, clumsy way of checking if the building was actually standing up straight. We needed a better way to bridge that gap.
And that brings us to the solution, a technology called hyperspectral imaging, or HSI for short. This is the intelligent eye we've been talking about, the one that can see what we can't.
This really puts it all into perspective. Our eyes see in just 3 bands of light, red, green, and blue. That's it. A hyperspectral camera, on the other hand, sees in hundreds of bands, stretching way beyond what's visible to us. It's like going from an old 3-color TV to a super high-definition screen, but for light itself. So all this amazing new data gets organized into something called a hypercube. And you can forget about a flat 2D picture. Imagine stacking hundreds of images on top of each other, where each layer shows you a tiny, different slice of the light spectrum. That's a hypercube.
So here's how you build one. First, you start with a normal 2D image. Then, for every single pixel in that image, the camera captures its entire light spectrum. You stack all those spectral layers together and boom, you get the hypercube. Now, every pixel has its own unique spectral fingerprint that tells you a story about what it's made of.
Okay, so we have these incredibly detailed spectral fingerprints. What secrets can they actually tell us about a plant? This is where it gets really, really interesting.
I mean, just look at the range of things we can do. We can measure if a plant has enough nutrients, we can detect if it's stressed out from drought or disease, we can even estimate how much food it's going to produce, and we can even tell different varieties of crops apart, all just from their unique light signature.
Now get ready for this number, 91.4%. Any guesses what that could be?
That is how accurately a model using this tech can spot a fungal disease in wheat just a few days after it's infected. Think about that for a second. We're talking weeks before a farmer could ever see it with their own eyes. That is the difference between a small, targeted treatment and losing your entire harvest. That's a massive deal.
And it's not just about spotting diseases. HSI can measure the exact amount of chlorophyll, which is vital for photosynthesis. It can check nitrogen levels to make sure fertilizer is used perfectly, and it can track a plant's water status to prevent stress. It's basically a complete health checkup for every single plant in the field.
And the accuracy is just incredible. AI models trained on this data can spot things like nutrient deficiencies with up to 97% accuracy. They can even detect stress from herbicides at 96% accuracy. That is a level of precision that could totally transform how we manage our farms.
So with this kind of power, what does the farm of the future actually look like? How does this all move from the lab and out into the real world?
The whole process is probably going to look something like this. A drone with an HSI camera flies over a field, just gobbling up terabytes of data. That data gets crunched in real time by an AI, which automatically flags any areas of concern. And then, finally, an alert with a simple, actionable insight like, hey, apply more nitrogen to this specific zone, just pops up on the farmer's tablet.
Now, let's be real, we're not quite there yet. There are definitely still some hurdles. The equipment costs need to come down, the data processing has to get even faster, and scientists are already working on the next frontier, figuring out how to image a plant's roots, deep underground.
So what's the end game in all of this? It's not just about collecting mountains of data. It's about building a system that gives you instant smart advice. Imagine a future where farmers don't just see problems, they get immediate, data-driven solutions handed to them. That's the future this intelligent eye is helping to create.